up. So I'm just going to go through the backstory of it and just basically just spit from the bullet points and give you an outline. I want to give you a bit of a background before we get to the actual figure of King Tut, because there's a lot of context in his story. We can't simply just start from King Tut and make sense of what really is the significance of the boy king and the golden mask. I've already said the affirmation while guys were tuning in, so I'm just going to jump in and start it, okay? Yeah, so we're speaking about the Amarna period of Kemet, which is a very significant period of Egyptian history due to the fact that the kings in that period, especially King Tut, you could say he's the most famous pharaoh out of all the pharaohs, yeah? Out of all of them, he's the most well-known pharaoh because of the mask, because of that death mask that was found and that's exhibited on posters everywhere and in all kind of iconography. He's more famous than even your Ramesses, you understand, or your Nefertitis or whoever. Most people, when they think about Kemet, Egypt, the first thing they're going to associate Kemet with is the mask of King Tut, okay? So let's go back to his grandfather, just to get a bit of context in who King Tut really is. We're going to go back to Pharaoh Amenhotep III, yeah, who's known as Memnon, yeah, my namesake. But Pharaoh Amenhotep III, he ruled from 1390 to 1352 BC, and he was the 9th ruler of the glorious 18th dynasty. Most people that speak about Kemet speak about the 18th dynasty pharaohs. They're the most well-known, especially King Tut. But even the others, they're more well-known than, let's say, the Middle Kingdom pharaohs who are hardly ever spoken about, or the Old Kingdom pharaohs like Khufu and them. Okay, so Amenhotep III is arguably, a lot of people will say he's the greatest pharaoh ever in the whole of Egypt. And there's been a lot of pharaohs, right? We've had Khufu associated with the pyramids. We've had Zoser, who was around in the time of Imhotep, Pepi, Seti I, Ramesses the Great. And most scholars will tell you, yo, Amenhotep III was the greatest pharaoh of them all. The reason why they say this is because of how much luster, how much pomp and glamour and riches. You see how people say Mansa Musa was the richest man in the world. I argue with people and say I actually believe it's Amenhotep III was probably richer than Mansa Musa, but because we don't have none of the records, our records and stuff, the details about him don't go that far back. I can't really say that, but I do believe that Amenhotep III and Queen T were richer than Mansa Musa. But this is how rich they were. They took Egypt into a new golden age, because we have in the Old Kingdom, yeah, Mene, he initiated dynastic Kemet, let's say 4125 BC. Muzungu say 3100 BC. I say 4125 BC. Menes, Dynasty 0. Then you have a golden age in the time of Zoser. He initiated it. It peaked in the time of Khufu and them with the pyramids and stuff. Around, we're talking around 3000 BC. Maybe, sorry, we're talking about 2500 BC, so 4500 years ago. You have Khufu and them. That's a golden age. And then Egypt falls into its first intermediate period. Intermediate period means it's just chaos. It's all kind of man saying they're the king and all. It's just lawlessness, yeah? And so we come back in with the Middle Kingdom. And with the Middle Kingdom, the golden age is brought in by Mentuhotep II, yeah? That's a second golden age for Kemet. After that brief golden age, with the 11th and 12th and 13th dynasty, Egypt goes into its second intermediate period, its second moment of chaos. This shit lasts. New Kingdom, now we have a third golden age, because there's 4, like Kabaka said. We have a third golden age coming in with the New Kingdom with Pharaoh Amos and them, 1580 BC. Pharaoh second Enre, he died on the battlefield, and his son Kamos, and then Kamos's brother Amos. Boom, 18th dynasty. Then you have Amenhotep I and Queen Amez Nefertari. Yeah, now we're going into another golden age. The golden age came in with Amenhotep III. They were so rich, people used to come from all over the kingdom. And remember, we're not just talking about Egypt when we're talking about all over the kingdom. By this time now, Egypt is an imperial kingdom because of all the stuff that happened with the Hyksos and stuff. People coming in and ruling over us and stuff. So what happened now is like we take a more imperial stance where we're making buffer zones and going and conquering this territory around us and making them pay us tribute and acting as a buffer zone. So if anyone's going to attack us again, they have to come through all these buffer zones first. We're going to know about it beforehand and be able to prepare for it. Stay down, yeah? So that's what we started doing, yeah? Amenhotep III, Memnon, and Queen T, they sat down while people came from all over the empire. So we're not talking about just the kingdom of Kemet. We're talking about the empire. So we're talking about all the way up to Turkey, yeah, in the north. We're talking all the way east into Iran, Elam. That's all the way to Iran. And south, we're talking all the way down to the Sixth Cataract, which is in the ancient kingdom of Yam in the Sudan. You understand what I'm saying? So now, all of them lands have to bring tribute to these just two rulers, Queen T and King Amenhotep III, Memnon. Everyone has to bring tribute and pay them all type of tributes to be under their protectorate. Do you understand? So the amount of treasures that was coming into the Egyptian coffers, because they do have certain records that tell you, yo, there was man bringing giraffes from inner Africa and all types of different spices and precious stones and gold from all over the shop, east, west, north and south. And they just sitting down there, Queen T and King Amenhotep III. And so what I want people to understand is that when we're dealing with Akhenaten and King Tut, we're dealing with Egypt in it just coming out of its golden age, in the new kingdom, the third golden age, you understand? When Egypt was at its peak, when Amenhotep III came off the throne and handed it to Akhenaten, he inherited Kemet in a fully prosperous state where all Egypt had money in the coffers, it had outposts everywhere, it had lands everywhere, and that's the kind of Kemet that Amenhotep stepped into. Now let's go farther. His mother, Queen T, she wasn't even Kemetian, she weren't even from Egypt. She was from the Sudan or from Kush, Tarseti, and her bloodline was an ancient bloodline that actually came back into Sudan from Sumeria. Because if you go into my previous lives, the Anunnaki lives, I speak about how the first crop of humans that was taken to do this Adama project was taken from Kush and Kemet. If you go back to Genesis 2, verses 9 through to 15, it tells you about there's two rivers and they run through Kemet, Kemet, Egypt and Ethiopia. They use the words Havilah and Abyssinia, or Ethiopia and Havilah. You understand? But they talking about Kush and Kemet. They taking the people from there and put them in the Eden, put them in Sumeria, in the garden in Eden. Do you understand? So them people are Kushites who came from the Nile Valley. That's why that's the first region mentioned in your Bible. They didn't come from Rome or Arabia. They weren't Muslims. They didn't come from Israel. They weren't Jews. Yeah? They weren't Greeks. Yeah? These were from the Nile Valley, from Ethiopia and Kemet. You understand what I'm saying? So the first Sumerians, the people who built Sumeria, is the same people who built Egypt. Archaeologists don't never want to tell you that. They want to stay away from race, so it's very obscure history. They never tell you what race certain people are, unless it's white folk. You understand what I'm saying? So this is the kind of situation that Akhenaten and King Tut were born into. Queen T coming from Sudan and coming from a family who had returned from Sumeria, she knew Tawheed. Tawheed is what Muslims use today to speak about the oneness of Allah. But the mother of Akhenaten, who is Memnon's wife, she used to teach Memnon about the oneness of Necheru before the word Allah ever came about. She used to say, yo, in Egypt here, everybody's worshipping the deities individually, like they're not working together, like they're not all a oneness. You understand what I'm saying? And so her thing was, yo, that's wrong. All the Neteru are one. They're a unified whole in Bar Kolum, or in the divine mind. They're all different expressions of just Pa-Neter, the nature. So a lot of people think Egyptians are polytheistic, like they worship many gods, but they really don't. They only have one supreme God, who is called Pa-Neter. That's it. And the Neteru, the different deities that you see, they're expressions of the nature. Do you understand? It's not an individual God. It's an expression of the nature. That's why they call Neteru. Nature is nature. Do you understand? And the Neteru are the principalities of nature, the expressions that express themselves in flesh and blood form. But they're expressions all of this same unified divine consciousness or divine mind. They're not individual gods where we should be pitching them against one another, or we should worship one and forget the other and all that type of shit there. Do you understand? That's when Nuwabu, sound right reasoning, right knowledge, right wisdom, right understanding, that's when it becomes pantheism. Over time, it becomes pantheism. The people they lose the crispness, the preciseness of the message. So it just turns into a pantheism thing. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So Queen T was the one who started teaching Memnon first about this Tawheed. Yeah. The oneness of Neteru, and how we mustn't get into this superstitious thing of separating all the deities. Yeah. And just doing this like how this polytheistic, pantheistic thing. So she was the one who's planted the seeds. And if you've studied the story of Amenhotep III, I've got it in my book, Treasures in the Sand, when it speaks about him particularly. I tell people how he was the first one to start this Atonism thing, you know. It wasn't Akhenaten, but he never really took it public and challenged the Amun priesthood. He never did that. He just kept it in the family. Like, in his own shrines and stuff, he deified himself before he died and stuff. So that's like Atonism. Because the traditional way was you deify the pharaoh after he's dead. He's not a deity while he's walking. He's not deified while he's alive. It's when he dies and they see him as becoming Osiris and all that stuff, where they deify him and they make a little cult for him that goes to his temple all the time. People mourn for him and stuff. Do you understand? That's traditional. But Amenhotep III, he started that before he even died, and had images of him offering offerings to himself and stuff. So he was already on what we're on today, like, yo, I am a god. God's inside me. Do you understand? But he never really pushed it, like forced it on people and forced it public. He kept that in the family. And obviously, like I said, that's coming from his wife, who came from the Sudan. So that was a Sudanese, if you want to say, monotheism. Do you understand what I'm saying? Which was the original Tawheed that they ran in Sumeria and ran everywhere else. Now it's ended up in Islam, where they say, oh, fear of Allah, Allah, the oneness of, sorry, not taqwa, Tawheed, the oneness of Allah. Yeah, and it's all, because remember, Allah got 99 names, and all these names, the biggest, the strongest, the most wisest, Al-Hakim, Al-Awal, the first, Al-Akiru, the last. So it's a unified whole. Do you understand? That's coming from the same concept that Queen T had, what she brought out of the Sudan, which came from Sumerian teachings, as they were some of the original families that was in Sumeria in the Eden. It's the same when you go into Egyptian history and you read about Tuya and Yuya. And they were some of the highest officials. They were so high, they were buried with the pharaohs, with the kings and queens. And remember, that them too, they were Sudanese. They weren't even Egyptians. But certain people came from this family of Tuya and Yuya. I know that Queen T, she's from that family. And then who's Nefertiti's father, the high priest, he's from that family. And who else was it? There's a couple more people. I can't even remember now. Let me just keep flowing, yeah? So they like to talk about how, when they talk about the 25th dynasty from Sudan, they say, oh, the Black Pharaohs from, if you go on YouTube right now and type in the 25th dynasty, they're going to title it the Black Pharaohs, like the rest of the pharaohs wasn't black. So that's a trick. So even though that's one of our greatest strengths, the 25th dynasty, they still use it against us subliminally, and we don't see. Because if they say, okay, these are the Black Pharaohs, that means the other pharaohs ain't black. So you can't even say that, because most of that, like Menes, he's from the Sudan. Menes and them came through what's called Neken, or what the Greeks call Hierakonpolis, which is Falcon City, which is close to the south, which is on the border of Nubia. Yes, and them people came from further south in Nubia, places like Sodinga and Wadi Halfa and stuff, and Soleb. You understand? This is where they came from Wawet. But they don't push that in Egyptology. They try and make you think like these guys came from the Middle East or something. They didn't. So all of these, most of these pharaohs, I think 9 out of 18 of the first pharaohs, they came from Sudan, directly from Nubia. And archaeologists know this. They just don't teach us this. They just keep showing us the same faces right at the late end of Egypt. You're talking Greek Egypt, Ptolemaic Egypt, where you have an influx of these Greek Idumeans and shit. I'm talking about white Greeks. I'm not talking about black Greeks. I'm talking about when Greece washed out and became Ionians and Dorians and Idumeans. These people came into Egypt. Archaeologists use them to tell you that's how Egyptians look. But we know better than that. Do you understand? I was just saying that to make you understand. Even in Akhenaten's case and King Tut's case, you're dealing with Sudanese lineage. We're not even dealing with Egyptian lineage. We're dealing with Sudanese lineage, okay? So, Memnon, that's Akhenaten's father, yeah, Amenhotep III, yeah, he took Kemet into a golden age, but it was the end of a golden age by the time there was a short golden age, because his life ended in the Battle of Troy. Archaeologists don't tell you this. Jidefre Memnon's going to tell you this. Like you've seen in my video on my page, Amenhotep III was the real Memnon, yeah, who died in the Battle of Troy fighting against Achilles. And it adds up because they say that Amenhotep III, Memnon, died young, died like in his 40s and that. So his life was cut short because of this Battle of Troy. You understand what I'm saying? With the in the Trojan War, he took 20,000 soldiers to fight with the Trojans against Achilles and the Greeks. And Achilles and the Greeks won. Even though we put up a brave fight, they made it into the movie Troy, where they got Brad Pitt playing Achilles. You understand? And they just leave Memnon out the story. I'm not talking about Agamemnon. He's a Greek who runs with a similar name to Memnon. Yeah, but Memnon with the 20,000 black soldiers from Kemet and Ethiopia, they never even featured that in the movie. These Hollywood boys just cut that straight out because of the significance of that. But if you read the Ethiopis, a book they try and bury, like you have to search hard to get this book here. The Ethiopis and the Iliad and all of them, they tell you about this. Homer and them tell you, yo, these are black, snub-nosed black man. And we worship these, man. These are the best men. These are the most favored of the gods. They're the longest living. That this, that. Even Achilles himself was a black guy. But anyway, let me go on, yeah? So they already had this Tawheed. I tell a lot of my Muslim family this. They already had this Tawheed in the Nile Valley long before any Islam came. And they say Islam had to come along and perfect religion for us. Like as black people, we didn't already perfect our own spiritual culture. We didn't need some Arabs to come and perfect religion for us. We already had this Tawheed, knowing, oh, it's just stupid, worshipping all these myriad of different gods. There's only one divine power. And all these deities, they're just representatives of this power. Do you see what I'm saying? So we had Tawheed there, just like we had the Trinity there with the virgin birth and all of that stuff. We had all the tenements, the good tenements of Islam in our spiritual culture. We had all the tenements of Christianity and all the tenements of Judaism and other stuff in our culture. And they just took little parts of it and call that Christianity and call that Islam and call that this. But it all comes from us. Let me go further, yeah? So we had this Tawheed, yeah? The oneness of the Neteru that came from the divine feminine in the family. It came from Queen T. Akhenaten never came up with it like they put in these Discovery Channel documentaries. Oh, he's a heretic. He just started worshipping the sun. This is how they hide all this shit because it goes deeper than this, yeah? But when you hear them talking about the religion of the Aten, and asking, oh, is this the first monotheism and rare? When they say the Atenism, that's like in Christianity when they say atonement. Okay, you do something wrong and you got to atone for your wrong. You got to atone for your sin. So you got to live with a certain type of virtue by a certain type of principles. This is coming from Akhenaten. His Atenism was atonement, where he changed that shit around. He's like, yo, I've had enough of this polytheism, pantheism stuff. To the point where he started shutting down temples. He's like, this is the temple of Amun. Shut that shit down and post soldiers there. He's sending the army to shut your shit down. If you don't want to shut it down, man are getting beat up and everything. You can even call this religious persecution if you're on the other side of the fence. If you're one of them people who don't believe in what Akhenaten's doing, then this is religious persecution. He started shutting all the temples. The temple of Osiris, the temple of Amun, Karnak temple. He closed that shit. Do you understand what I'm saying? My man shut down all the temples, yeah? And the only temple that's running is the temple of the Aten, his temple, his religious thing. He shut down the whole thing and reformed religion. Was he right? Was he wrong? That's up to you to decide. To me, he wasn't right or he wasn't wrong. He did what he felt was necessary for him to change what needed to be changed. Was he successful? I'll leave that up to you, but let's continue. So he started closing down these stuff and bringing his new form, whether you want to call it a cult or a religion or just a change in emphasis. He's coming with this Atenism. He ain't recognizing Amun-Ra as the supreme no more. Not because he don't recognize Amun, but he's trying to get away from this pantheism, polytheism stuff. And for the fact that the Amun priesthood, not because they're called the Amun priesthood means they're good. These ninjas is corrupt. They're so corrupt that they've made so much money off the people, their riches rival the house of Pharaoh. they're just as rich as the institution of the great house or the pharaoh. They've got as much gold as you have, Mr. Pharaoh. Do you understand? They've got as much reach as you have. They've got as much land as you have. They've got as much influence and power as you have. So now they're rivals to the pharaoh. You see what I'm saying? Over time, they just grew unchecked. Nobody checked their power. Till now, they're a problem for the pharaoh. Because if they have a disagreement, they might say, well, I don't agree with you, king, and I'm not following it. We're doing our own thing. So they didn't take nicely to this Akhenaten and his changes and stuff. He's killing their money. He's basically killing their bread. Do you see what I'm saying? So they took a nasty stance against Akhenaten, just like he had took against them. And this had been brewing for time. It's just that Akhenaten's father didn't challenge them. He didn't really make it a problem and come and challenge these men about it. You understand? He just kept it, kept the peace. But Akhenaten now, he started bringing it to these priests. Was like, I'm shutting down your temple, rude boy. I'm shutting down your religion. I'm shutting down this. Your shit fake. So now it's an all-out head-to-head between this old traditional thing when it comes to this spirituality, even though it's watered down and gone into this superstitious thing, against this new thing that the people don't understand. My man's coming with some one God thing. The people didn't really take to it. They still was keeping to their household gods, their tarots and their Isis and Hathor and stuff. They was like, what is this? And he was making himself like the sole benefactor of it, meaning that it was really more about him. That's what the people seen it as. It's not really about us and his reforms. It's about him, Akhenaten. You see what I'm saying? You man getting off?
Yeah.
Yeah, come.
Okay. So then he's gonna stay with you because she's scared to sleep by herself.
Is she?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's gonna stay with you in the lounge. She's in the lounge.
Yeah. I'll be done soon.
Okay, can I show you something quick?
Yeah, go on.
Pause
It's on live.
now. Can't pause it. I've got to show you this thing, man.
Quick, come on.
Eminem Berry's gaming 190.
Yeah. Send it to my phone, innit?
Yeah. I don't know if I can. I'll tag you on Insta.
Yeah, tag me on Insta, inshallah. Have fun, man.
Yeah, start.
Walaikum salam. Sorry about that, guys, yeah? So, where was I? Hold on. Superstition. Yeah, it turned into this superstition, pantheism stuff. He thought that he had to change the emphasis in the Mirage, man. Sorry, guys. I've got dogs, brothers, everyone just coming and like, leave me alone. He felt like he had to change the emphasis in the religion, yeah, to get the people back to a more sound mind, because superstitious, the way the country was, the minds wasn't sound, man. These priests were leading the people astray, and Kemet wasn't the same Kemet. Remember, every time after every golden age, even though we returned to a golden age, the present golden age was weaker than the previous one. So the middle kingdom was more illustrious than the new kingdom. And then the old kingdom was more illustrious than the middle kingdom. So shit was better at the beginning than it was at the end. We started on a high advanced level, and then over the time we dwindled. So the Egypt we see when we're looking at King Tut and Akhenaten and them, that's just like a shadow of what Egypt really was. That's not even Egypt in its full bloom. Do you see what I'm saying? So yeah, he started doing that. And then it comes to a point where Akhenaten moves the capital. The capital's no longer where it used to be, in Thebes, or Waset in our language. They moved the whole capital from Waset, and this is what Egyptologists say, and move it to a place what's called Akhet-Aten, or the horizon of the Aten. Akhenaten moves into the middle of Egypt and builds a city, a brand new city in the middle of nowhere in a number of years. And the way that he did it is like, it's not the same quality buildings like how Kemet builds, how they build with a certain type of methods and stuff. He was using really small stones called talatats, yeah? And it's kind of like Lego, kind of like stucco. So it's kind of like, compared to how they usually build, it's really quick and cheap. So he quickly just built up this stucco city called Akhet-Aten, yeah? And moved him and his followers, all moved to that city. Now, from my own research, I really feel like it was a point. It was either that they ran him there, this priesthood. They were so strong that they pushed him out of the city. Mind my thing, Mirage, because if you knock this down again, yeah, I'm going to lock you up. Yeah. So, what was I saying? Yeah, they forced him out of the city. Either they forced him out of the city, or it became too dangerous for him to stay in the city. So he moved to his own city so that the beef, to avoid the beef. so to speak, yeah, and build his own city in 𝓥��𓃃𓃝𓃗. Today they call it, in today's Egypt, Tel El Elmana, because it's on a little high-rise hill. So it's a tel, T-E-L, yeah, and they call it Tel El Amana, and they call that period the Amana period, from the time of Akhenaten all the way to the last pharaoh of that dynasty, which is Horemheb. It's called the Amana period, and I'll go through a bit more about that. But yeah, so I feel like he had to move. He had to move from the city. He had to get out of the capital city and make his own city, because he could have been murdered. Them priests could have just took him out, yeah? And so he moved out of the city into Akhenaten. During this time, King Tut was born while Akhenaten was still alive. And during the early part of his reign, he was with his father, Akhenaten. At a certain time, Queen Nefertiti snuck King Tut, yeah, snuck King Tut out of the city of his father Akhenaten and took him back to Waset, to the priest. The priest instigated her to do this, yeah? So she betrayed Akhenaten and went and stole King Tut and took him back to Waset, Thebes. And in Thebes, they set him up as a rival against Akhenaten. So while Akhenaten was still ruling, they put King Tut on the throne in Thebes. So he's in Akhenaten as king, he's in Akhenaten as the king, and King Tut's in Waset as the king, and they set them as rivals. After 17 years, because Akhenaten changed his name. First he had the name Amenhotep IV. For the first 5 years, he played it cool. Like there's no changes or nothing. And then in the 5th year, he just like, sure, I'm not no Amenhotep, I'm Akhenaten. And he made himself like this prophet-like figure to bring all of these religious changes and stuff, yeah? It's come to the point where they forced him out the city, his sons got stolen off of him, and they've set his son up, King Tut, as a rival to him. Anyway, after 17 years, Akhenaten disappears from Egyptian records. There's a mystery as what happened to him. Some people say he was murdered. And when you hear Masons talking about the three ruffians and Harim Abif, they're really talking about Akhenaten and the plot to kill Akhenaten. That's where they get it from. Do you understand? Most top Masons know this, yeah? That they get this Harim Abif story and the three ruffians from the story of King Akhenaten and how these priests would try to kill him because of his changes that he was making. Other people say he was exiled. They dashed him out the country, just like he had to run to his own city. Eventually, he had to run out the whole country and go into Palestine. And this is where you get Israelites from, yeah? Some people say one of his high priests was Moses. Moses was one of his high priests, yeah? And after Akhenaten's death, all his followers, they got exiled from Egypt. It's like, they're like, yo, get out the country, mate. So these guys went and stayed in the Palestine and became these Hebraic Israelites, okay? And we'll get to that another time too. So yeah, Akhenaten is known for religious persecution and being a heretic king, because in this time when he's shutting down the temples, his reforms went so far where, imagine if someone said, you can't even write in English no more because I don't like them letters. They're to do with this God. So them letters, you can't write them no more. Now you have to write like this. He changed the writing. He changed the art, yeah? You have to draw yourself real, yeah? You can't just draw me like some big book, like buff, 10 out of 10 looking guy. If I look 4 out of 10, draw me looking 4 out of 10. I want to represent myself looking real. If I've got a big belly, I want the artist to show my big belly. I want them to show my elongated face. You understand? He started depicting himself like that. He changed the whole art, so they call it Amana period art. He changed the writing, certain hieroglyph. You would have to use a god, a figure of a god in there, like an Isis or an Amun. Yo, that word is banned. Just because you have to use a figure of one of these deities in there, yo, that's banned. So now he's using hieratic. And his first language he was using anyway, even in international correspondence, was cuneiform, what they associate with Iraq. Like I told you guys, that's an African language. People in Africa, even pygmies, were speaking cuneiform, which is closely connected with Niger-Congo Mande languages. If you look at it linguistically, it's the same as the Mande script. It looks the same, Dan, with a couple tweaks. You understand what I'm saying? So Akhenaten was using this cuneiform, yeah, as his first language of international correspondence, and he was using hieratic, which is like a scribbling way of doing hieroglyphs. You're not drawing all this fancy stuff. You just probably draw a stick man, like draw a stick man quick, so you can scribble down things like, okay, he took 10 boots, he took 4 oranges, and he took this. You're not going to sit there and take your time and draw this whole hieroglyphic thing that's going to probably take you hours. There's a hieratic, they scribbled down, they didn't write in hieroglyphs. That's not an everyday language that everyone uses for transactions and stuff. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah, he started making all of these changes, and the people were really against it. Even in now times, when archaeologists dig up certain places, even in the city of Akhetaten, they find in people's houses hidden away household gods and that. Like, so there must have been people in Akhenaten's religion that's false. They're like acting like they're in his religion. Yeah, I believe in the Aten. But them niggas is going home and they taking out Isis out the cupboard and taking out Hathor and stuff. That's what they found. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, so people didn't easily give up their household gods and their traditional stuff, man, even if on the surface they did. After Akhenaten's brief 17-year reign, people went back to the old ways, man. They abandoned this city and they said it's like cursed. You know how they are if they put a curse on there. If they tell you that enough, that's cursed, bruv. So you get sick and rare. They left that to the sand, where it just became like, covered in the sand. Certain other pharaohs, like Ramesses, they was like, there's all them stones there. You might as well use them stones to build the thing we're building over here and save some money in that. So certain pharaohs started using the building material, and using it in their construction and stuff. Because when now that certain buildings are in ruins, certain ones of the stones are exposed, and you can see like Akhenaten's name on them and stuff. They took these from Akhetaten. You understand what I'm saying? So they abandoned this city. It became a place known as a cursed place. No one want to go there no more. They left that. They took all the traffic back to Thebes, you understand, where King Tut was set up. So we've done with Akhenaten. Let me just say, Akhenaten was dealing with the Emerald Tablets. He was a student of the Emerald Tablets and called himself the 𝓆𝑔𝓄𝓃𝓃𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏 So when you hear Hebrews talking about, the Messiah, Jesus, they got that from Akhenaten's 𝓆𝓆𝓄𝓃𝓃𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏 He says, I'm the son of God. That's what Akhenaten said. Just like Osiris said. So he said, I'm the Osiris of my time. I'm the Messiah. I'm the 𝓆𝓆𝓄𝓃𝓃𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏 So the Hebrews say Mashiach, the Savior. And then the Muslims say Masi, the Savior. But that's from the Egyptian word mes or mese, which is the Messiah. And they anointed themselves with the crocodile fat. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you could put this to any religious person, especially if they're a scholar, they'd have to agree and say, yeah, that's true. But they took that from there. So the credit should be given to Akhenaten. When we talking about this Jesus stuff, they took half of that story from Akhenaten's story. You understand? He was the original 𝓆𝓆𝓄𝓃𝓃𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏 Not no Jesus, no Bible story. You understand? And then him seeing himself as the God in the flesh. His son was seen as the son of God, King Tut. So his son was seen as Sarah. In today's language, Sarah is a woman's name in Islam and that. Sarah, Hebrew, Sarah, Abraham's wife, Sarah. But in Kemet, Sarah is a masculine thing. Son of, Ra. So you the son of Ra, Sarah. You understand? A lot of pharaohs carried that title in their name, the son of Ra. So King Tut was a Sarah. He was a son of God. And the God was Akhenaten. He was walking around calling himself God, just like Jesus. Jesus said, is it not written in your law? I said, ye are gods, all of your sons of the Most High. This is John 10, verse 34. So Jesus said that. So why it shouldn't be any different. Akhenaten said that. How can he say that? Well, Jesus said that. What's the difference? You understand what I'm saying? And he said it before Jesus. He's the original one. Jesus is the copy. Because somebody said this and was walking this before him. Do you understand what I'm saying? So now, with all this Emerald Tablet knowledge and that, Akhenaten didn't want to continue warring and fighting. And so during his reign, he didn't employ his army into extending the empire. So all the lands that we had gained through the Middle Kingdom, going all the way up to Turkey, and all the way to Elam, and all the way down to Sudan, people started seeing him as, my man's a bit weird, this is a weak king. We're not paying no tribute to 𝓆𝓆𝓄𝓃𝓃𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏𝓏 So they've lost that land. So that land's rebelled. They're doing their own thing. Everybody's just, the empire's shrinking. And they even got letters of soldiers sending correspondence back to Akhenaten like, what going? We need soldiers up here, man. These men are coming and taking back the thing and rare. And my man's just left them out there for dead. He literally left it. He don't want nothing to do with no war and shit. Most of these pharaohs, they send in a contingent to shore up the thing. He was totally disinterested in war. And certain people like the army, they hated him for this shit. So the army turned against him. So not only has he got a problem with the priesthood, who's got just as much power as him, he's messing with the army now too. And they've got just as much power as you too. So now you got 3 factions in Kemet. of the Amarna time, you got the Pharaoh, that means the house of Pharaoh, the whole institution of Pharaoh. You've got the priesthood, yeah? And you've got the army. And now these are at loggerheads. Now the army and the priesthood start working together against the Pharaoh. Do you understand? They're like, yo, we need to get rid of this dude. This dude's going to take the country down. This reform stuff, yo, he's killing our pocket with all this. Just like Jesus did in his story. He comes in the Bible and the church is this like negative thing. They conning the people, yeah? When Jesus comes along now, the church is pissed because now their money's dried up because this guy's like, yo, the real church is us, the people, man. When we gather, we are the church. We don't need to go and pay these guys and give them all our riches and all, putting money in a hat and all this stuff. He exposed the church. So it's the same now. Apply that to Akhenaten. He's like, yo, this priesthood's fake with this pantheism stuff and that. We ought to take it back to the Tawhid, the oneness of Neteru. You understand? And get away from this. They're misleading you. So now they at loggerheads. You see what I'm saying? But Akhenaten's coming from the emerald tablets and stuff. And he gave that kind of wisdom to King Tut because he kept saying, yo, a golden child is going to be born. I'm going to have a golden child. And remember, Nefertiti gave him 5 daughters. She never even gave him a son. But he kept saying, I'm going to have a golden child. My son's going to come. He's going to be the golden child. This is the same Jesus story. Yo, Jesus is going to come. He's going to be the Messiah. He shall be the king of the Jews. And if they don't accept him, blah, 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 blah. That's the King Tut story. He's going to be the golden child and rare to people accepting him, blah, 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 blah. It's the same thing. The Jesus of 2,000 years ago is really King Tut, is what I'm going to tell you guys, yeah? I told you guys this in my book, The Golden Child. I explained it for you. You can read Genesis 50 and you can see how the white people in Canaan are confused. They mistaken the Israelites for Egyptians. They can't tell the difference. The Cometians and the Israelites is exactly the same according to Genesis 50. So this is an early part of the Bible. Yo, white people are getting it confused. Yo, they confused them with the Egyptians. If they must look the same, dress the same, sound the same for them to be confused. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So this was the early Hebrews, which came out of this same Atonism. Yeah. But anyway, like I said, they set up King Tut as a rival to Akhenaten. And at that time, King Tut's name was Tutankhamen. His name wasn't even Tutankhamen. His name was Tutankhamen. You understand? The living image of the Aten, the unique one, the high point. And then the priest, because remember, King Tut, when he came on the throne, he's still a youth, man. He's like 9 years old. He can't make decisions for himself and shit. So now these priests are got him in the perfect place. They're like, yo, okay, change your name back to Tutankhamen. We're going back to the old religion, yeah? They forced him into this because he's a little boy. But during the days while he's growing, he's turning more like his dad. And I'll give you a few things about King Tut. I'm going to have to revisit this because my battery will die. And I think I'll go over 2 hours if I just try and do it all in one. So I'll come back tomorrow night and finish the next part. But yeah, King Tut as a youth, he used to sneak out the palace, yeah, cover himself with disguises, sneak out the palace, 7, 8, 9 years old, go and mingle with the public, yeah, and give them gold, what he's stolen out the royal coffers, from his dad's coffers and that. He's all about the poor people. He don't like suffering. This is a youth, man. None of these Egyptologists are telling us this shit. I have to travel to bring you back this knowledge here. And I'm telling you, you can confirm it. This guy, he had such a good heart as a youth. He used to sneak out even at night time and walk among the commoners and give them gold and give them certain things from the palace until he got caught. And his dad didn't even reprimand him for it, Akhenaten. He said, that's actually a good trait. You understand? So we can see, like, I like to bring the characters out of people when we're speaking about them. They're not just some mythical robotic figure. Oh, no, they got feelings like us. They got emotions like us. They got cares. They got humor. They got fears. They got aspirations. When I write and I speak about them, I hope that I'm bringing that part of them out because no one else is. It's just like we're reading about these silhouettes and shit, man. You understand what I'm saying? So this kid or this youth was like that. He cared about the people, man. So by the time he started coming in his teenage now, the priesthood started fearing like, bastard, this guy's going to turn out like his dad. He's acting a lot like his dad. He looks like him. He got an elongated head. He moves like him. He still didn't move the name off his throne, the Tutankhaten. So on one side he's got Tutankhamen, and on one side he's got Tutankhaten on the same throne. He never moved it. So he still kept that name. Do you see what I'm saying? And he still kept the teachings of the Aten. He never really strayed from it. Him and his sister, Ankhesenamun. That's Nefertiti's oldest one. yeah, 𝓆𝓅𝓃𝓃𝓏𝑛 and him, they never strayed from these teachings and stuff. I'm not sure about Meritaten and the others, but they kept the teachings. So now by the time he's 18, he actually starts acting like Akhenaten now, because he realizes, okay, I'm a man now. I don't have to listen to these guys no more. I can make my own rules right now. He weren't just a puppet all his life. Like they try and have it like that. Oh yeah, the priesthood influenced him and he didn't fight, like he didn't fight back. He fought back, he pushed back. He was like, nah, I'm doing it this way. Nah, I'm doing it that way. There's like, yo, we're scared of this dude. He's going to take it back to this Atenism stuff. And the people were scared of him too. I'll tell you why. Because he had certain psychic powers, King Tut. He had what you call the evil eye. If he stared at you like this, you're fucked. He could paralyze you. People were scared of that youth there. This is the golden child, yeah? So one bunch of people looked at him like, yo, he's a devil child. My man's an evil youth. Because they're staying on their ignorance, on their superstitious things. So to them, he's a devil. And then the other side, they see him as the golden child. Do you understand? So it's like, yo, what side of the fence are you on? But anyway, people are scared of him because they know, yo, my man will knock that evil eye on you and psych you out, you know. My man's got like juju things going on and shit, man. They were scared of this youth, and he could travel interdimensionally. So after his dad died, and the people who were conspiring against his dad were looking for the emerald tablets because there's power in it, and they never knew where it was. Akhenaten and them was dealing with the emerald tablets, and they was its keepers. So they tried to instigate King Tut to show them where these tablets were. And the tablets is always in pieces. They're never kept all together because of the power of it. So they're hidden in certain different places. They put this in your Marvel movie, Avengers, with the what's it called? Them stones that Thanos put in his hand. What's it called? Destiny stones or whatever? Anyway, them stones there. That's the same like the emerald tablets. It's like in 5 pieces. And it's hidden in different places in the world. So no one person can have all this power combined into one. But anyway, these archons are looking for all these pieces. And so King Tut took the responsibility on himself to guard that piece that was in Kemet. Yeah. And to do it, he hid it in the lower 4th realm, in the lower 4th dimension. And so to guard it, he had to take his consciousness into the 4th realm and guard it in the 4th realm, knowing he might not come back from the 4th realm. He might be trapped there. And he was trapped there. So he never woke up in his body. 18 years old. They tell you, yo, the nigga died at 18. We think someone bashed him over the head. Another one tells you he fell off a chariot. Another one tells you he had malaria. Another one tells you this. Another one tells you that. Jidefre Meminon will tell you, my man sacrificed himself. And he went to guard the tablets in the 4th dimension, the lower 4th, from archons getting their hands and the knowledge of the whereabouts of the tablets in this dimension here. He has to guard it on that side there. And that's the story of King Tut. And that's what Egyptologists is never going to tell you. They're just going to tell you, these guys worship the sun. Yeah, the Aten is the sun. It had nothing to do with the sun. You have Atumre. That means the undifferentiated one. When the light of the sun first breaks the horizon and it's just about to break through. Yeah, it's called the undifferentiated one. The first point of becoming. The first point of Kepara, or becoming into being. Yeah, Atum. And then at the high point of the sun, midday, yeah, it becomes Atun or Aten, like Akhenaten saying, the Aten, the unique one, the high point. And then in sunset, it becomes Amun. And so you call it the triad of Re, the hidden one, Amun, sunset. You understand? So it was just an aspect of Ra when he's telling you about this Atun. It's an aspect of Ra. And being that the sun is the most highest expression of the most highest power, yeah, we use Ra to simplify the Most High. It doesn't mean we're worshipping the sun like the sun is God, like a sun worshipper. But they use that to camouflage this. So you don't understand that. Why we're all fascinated with King Tut is because your DNA knows, yo, that's the real Messiah. He was the real Messiah. And they are one of the last from the old bloodline from the Sudan. They even had extraterrestrial DNA. Him and Nefertiti used to sit down and talk with extraterrestrials. There's certain archaeologists that will actually tell you this. They found stuff that proves that Akhenaten had contact with extraterrestrial ETs. Even other pharaohs did, where they tell you about seeing the crafts and shit like that. I think it was Thutmose the first, either the first or the third. One of them, either the first or the second. Yeah, and also I should say Akhenaten had an older brother who was supposed to be the pharaoh. He would have been the 4th Thutmose. He was named Thutmose the 4th. He was older than Akhenaten, but he died, yeah, before Memnon died. So Akhenaten now is the next in line. So he didn't even have no plans to be no pharaoh. He didn't, like I said, he ain't into this war thing, or no, he just wants to spend all this time on religion. I shouldn't say religion, on spirituality, Ma'atian concepts, alchemy, the emerald tablets. He was one of them thinkers. He was one of them philosopher dudes. So he didn't really want to plan. I shouldn't say he didn't want to, but he didn't plan to be the pharaoh. Obviously, when it came to him being the pharaoh, now he can use this as an opportunity. Yo, now I can spread this, my reforms. Yeah, maybe before he knew he was going to become the pharaoh, he'd have been happy to keep all that shit to himself. But now I'm the pharaoh, and I'm not going to stay quiet. I'm changing this whole shit. Do you understand? So he was sent, and he's even mentioned in the Quran. I'll put it in, when I post this on the YouTube, I'll put it in the comments where in the Quran you can see this, how he was one sent. He was a Nabi. You understand? He was sent to Kemet to take them out of this pantheism and shit, and they didn't listen. They did not listen. The people rebelled against him. Yeah, so for me, that was the beginning and the end for Kemet. By the time the last great pharaoh, well, you can say two, Ramesses II and Ramesses III. That was probably the last two great pharaohs out of Kemet after this Akhenaten thing. Yeah, most of the other pharaohs dulled in significance to the pharaohs that came before, until you get to the 25th dynasty, which is way later. Yeah, you missing out maybe 3-4 dynasties before you get to this 25th dynasties, and them 3-4 dynasties are all foreign, like Persians and Libyans and Babylonians, and then yo, these men come from Sudan and just take back over the thing. Do you understand? But it really died after the people didn't want to listen to the reforms and that shit stuff that Akhenaten and them were trying to give them to take them out of this pantheism. Yeah, and even pharaohs like Ramesses II, you could see that he was in awe with Memnon, not necessarily Akhenaten, because most pharaohs, they didn't even speak his name. They looked at him like, yo, this guy's an idiot. You can't even say that name around here. They scrubbed his name off the bloody king list, like he never reigned. There was never no king called Akhenaten, and that's one of the most highest disrespects in Kemet, because that means you ain't gonna have no afterlife. If somebody scrubbed your name out, they thought, yo, your soul can't live on in the afterworld. No one's going to remember to even speak your name. If no one's speaking your name on earth, you're dead, rude boy. So they plan to make these guys have no more existence, yeah? But we're still here speaking their name today. You understand? So the Most High wanted them to continue, because we right now having a live about Akhenaten. What am I on? 17. I'm going to end this soon. So it's a lot of... There's a lot more little things I could give you about Akhenaten, like the Psalms 104. If you go and read Psalms 104 in your Bible, that's taken right off the wall of Akhenaten's temple. The only thing he says, oh, Aten, and in the Bible it says, oh, Lord. Every time the word Aten comes, they just change it to Lord. But other than that, hold on, this is the exact same thing. Like, yo, they just ripped it raw off my man's Temple of the Sun and put it in the Bible and told you some King David wrote it. You understand what I'm saying? This is not a joke. Check that out. Psalms 104. Yeah, and then read Psalms 84:11. And it says, yo, the Lord God is a son. Hold on, that's the Egyptian kind of thing, ain't it? The Bible is telling you the Lord God is a son. Put that to your preacher. What does that mean? Yeah? Because that sounds like some sun worship thing to me. If you're saying that these Egyptians are sun worship, how's this line in the Bible any different? Psalms 84:11. The Lord God is a sun and a mogan and a shield. He's a sun and a shield. What the hell? Okay, so he must be Amun-Ra. Revelation 3:14. Yo, the Amen, Amun-Ra. They hiding this shit from you, man. Yeah? So, the next time when I come back, I'll continue from where I left off here. But my battery's going low. I had a message from TikTok today saying it's because I smoked on camera, they limited this live, which is very disappointing after the amount of work I put in to promote this live today. But I make note of that, so I won't smoke on camera no more, just so that these lives can reach people. I'll smoke after. Do you understand what I'm saying? But other than that, I feel like this will help people, and I'll load it up on my YouTube, and I'll address the situation from there. But tomorrow I'm going to come back on same time, 10 o'clock, because I've only got through one side. I had two sides of this shit. I've only got through one side. Sometimes it might look like nothing, but then when I speak about it and spread out the bullet points what I put on the page, it's like, oh hell no, this is like a this is like a 2-hour live, man. I might need a part 3 for this. Yeah, so I'll read a few of these, anything in here and then I'll get off. When this shit hits 10, I'll get off. For now, we're okay. But yeah, I was running around today. I forgot I got to babysit for my brother and stuff. So I'm sorry about that interruption earlier, and I'm sorry about the thing being restricted. The page is doing really good, so I don't want to start working against that and going on breaking community guidelines and shit like that. But I'm sure we'll sort that out. Let's say here, are these pics of the flat earth real? We ain't talking about no flat earth, yeah? So I'm not even gonna, yeah man, we're not talking about the flat earth, man. Yeah guys, so gladly there's not a lot to answer here today. But yeah, after the Akhenaten thing, after Ramesses II, so you're saying after like 1279 BC and shit, the world starts declining, and then by the 1100s, the reign of Ramesses III, yeah, we have what's called World War Zero, and I'll do a live just on that itself, when the whole world of Arabs and white people gathered around Kemet and said, yeah, they're weak now, we're gonna take them out. I've put that in Treasures in the Sand too. This happened in 1197 and again in 1188, and then after that, the light in the world just went out. You see, like how we got the Dark Ages in the middle period. There was a Dark Ages in the ancient world after this Akhenaten and a World War Zero shit. And then from the 1100s, for 400 years, all the way down to 747 BC, there's literally nothing in history. Like, hold on, nothing was happening. From 1100s to 747, the shit just went dead. Yeah, and there's a reason for that. And it didn't come back out of that dark spot until 747 BC as the 25th dynasty from Kush, who brought back light and civilization not only into Kemet, but into the whole entire world again. Because like I said, the lights had gone out after this Akhenaten shit, and King Tut sacrificing himself to go and fend the thing. You understand? So like I said, I'll come back tomorrow and I'll bust off the next piece of this. And then if you guys have got any questions, like if you guys from today join tomorrow, if you got any questions, slap them on the comments, yeah? And I'll address them within time. But with that being said, I don't think there's much more for me to say. So thanks for being here. Have a beautiful night. Namaste. Peace.